Hello everyone, welcome back to Afrugaltechchannel. Now in this video I wanted to show you this DIY router build that I made for my home network with a PC. Before starting though, I wanted to tell you that this solution is ideal if you have very serious Wi-Fi problems such as interferences, signal strength problems, and also if you want to connect many more peripherals to your internet connection. If you just want to spice your own network up, you might probably just need another router, just as this cheap wireless LAN router, maybe a wireless AC router, or something like this, which is also a router but can be used as a signal extender for your Wi-Fi connection, or also a power line, or something else. I mean, you have a lot of possibilities, and depending on your budget you can choose whatever you like. Now let's see what's inside this router. There you go. As you can see, this router is in a Micro-ATX case, so it's a little bit big. Now you can choose any case you like. Let me just say that my ATX setup can be and probably will be more difficult to make because of the space constraints and the number of PCI Express cards. But if you are a bit careful and choose the right components, you won't have any problem. So let's just have a look at the components. Now I have used this ASUS AM1 Micro-ATX board, which is probably called the AM1 M/A, I don't know. And the CPU is the AM1 Athlon 5350 from AMD. Now, you may probably have an old PC with a different motherboard and processor. You can use them as well. Just be careful just have a look at the current draw, at the power draw, before using it as a router to avoid a very expensive power bill. And if you want to buy new parts for a router build, I suggest you to buy an Intel Celeron combo board, which has a CPU soldered on board, or another low power alternative. So let's have a look at the other components. I have here 8 GB of DDR3 RAM, which is absolutely overkill, but I had them lying around, so they were free, and free means good. The storage here, for the storage here we have a Kingston 120 GB SSD, which was also lying around. If you want to buy new components, I suggest you to buy a 2 or 4 GB stick of RAM and a 60 GB SSD. They are a bit cheaper and they work just fine. Now the power supply here is an interesting component because I have recycled it from a LC Power mini ITX case. It's a 75 watt power supply, but it's already more than enough. Here we have the DC-DC converter, and here the AC-DC converter. So if you need to buy if you need to buy a power supply, you can get a PicoPSU, or if you have a motherboard with a DC jack, you can just use a laptop AC-DC converter. Just don't buy a very big power supplies, just like a 500, 600, 700, 800 watt power supply. They are seriously not needed for this kind of job. Let's just talk about a little bit about the noise and cooling. I have this Arctic Alpine M1 active cooler. Is seriously more than enough for this router, so I keep the fan as silent as possible. And this system has never been noisy, has never experienced thermal throttling, has never had any problems of this sort. So that's actually very good because I use this system in my living room. And so if you want to buy a fanless fanless CPU cooler or non-standard heatsink, just buy a silent one, a cheap one, almost anything will do. Now let's talk a little bit about networking, which is actually the more interesting stuff. Now I have this gigabit Ethernet on my main board, which is a Realtek chipset, but works just fine, that I use to connect to my modem via this cable. Also, I have this LAN board connected via PCI Express 1X. It's Realtek 4-port gigabit Ethernet, and it didn't give me any big problems in all these months that I used this router. So you can buy a Realtek card if you don't need very powerful setup. If you want to buy an Intel card, a Broadcom card, or any other kind of NIC, you can do it as well. Just buy the best alternative for your setup. And I have also these two Wi-Fi cards. The first one is 2.4 and 5 GHz 900 megabit card, and the other one is older 2.4 only gigahertz 300 or 450, I can't remember, Wi-Fi card. Now when choosing a Wi-Fi card especially, you should be careful, because if you're using Linux, as I am using, you should choose an Atheros Qualcomm chipset, because they're really a lot more reliable. Linux likes them a lot more, the drivers are better, and so on. So these two wireless cards use the ATH9K driver on Ubuntu 16.04, which works flawlessly out of the box. And I suggest you, if you don't want to, geek on your computer for quite a lot of time, to choose an Atheros Wi-Fi card, because it's the best and the easiest experience that you can actually have. Also, I could have just used one of these two wireless cards and use a VLAN, but the process would have been a bit long, so I decided to buy two separate cards, because the older legacy card was about 10 to 15 euros on Amazon.it, so it was very cheap. This card was 30 to 35 euros, so not really a lot. The LAN card, however, was more than 70 euros, because it had 4 ports. So if you want to get a used card or a 2-port only card, you can do it as well and save a bit of money. It depends on how many devices you want to connect physically to your network. And let's talk a little bit right now about the price of other components. The AM15350 Athlon is a little bit scarce in this moment. You can buy a 3850 Sempron for 30 euros on Amazon.it, but as I told you before, you can use any motherboard and CPU combo, so just pick what you like. The CPU cooler was, I think, 6 euros. The motherboard was 39 euros. The power supply was free because I have found it lying around, but a 90 watt PicoPSU, including an AC/DC converter, will be about 50 euros, I think. The RAM was free, but A DDR3 4GB stick will be pretty cheap, I think less than 20 euros. And the SSD was free as well, but a 60GB SSD will be 30 to 40 euros, and 120GB SSD will be 50 euros, I think. Now the case was an Aerocool knockoff. It was I think 30 to 40 euros. If you want to get another kind of case, as I told you before, you can do it without a problem. Now this case here has the low profile PCI Express ports, so if you have a low profile setup, remember to use low profile brackets on your PCI devices. And last but not least, let's talk a little bit about the operating system. Now I have not chosen free BSD or other more networking related OS because they were a pain in the ass to configure. So pfSense was not my final choice. I have instead chosen Ubuntu, and after a little bit of tweaking, I have removed a lot of unnecessary packages. So right now I have a very light system, and also all the network configuration procedure took me about I think 2 hours, and it was pretty straightforward. So literally almost anyone can do it via the GUI. You don't even need to access the terminal unless you want to do some special stuff, which was not what I did for my home setup. So this was my DIY router build. It was, as you can see, pretty easy to make, pretty cheap, and right now my home network is actually almost perfect. I can't have I didn't have almost any problems about devices that disconnect randomly. Everything is going fine, and the PC has kept on for I think days, weeks, sometimes even months without giving me any problem. So that was my setup. Hope this video helped some of you that maybe wanted to build a DIY router, and until next time, stay frugal, my dudes.